Hello and welcome to SEO 101 on WMR.FM, episode number 476. This is Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my co-host is my company senior SEO, Scott Van Ack. I'm going to ask you, because I know I didn't get to you the last time, how are you doing today?
You know, I'm just climbing the SERPs of life.
I had that
say with a
prepped,
straight face.
I didn't ask it to him. Yeah, anyway, yeah, we're so lame. Yeah. Anyway, we're having a non-summer here pretty much right now, just being chilly and wet, and we finally got some sun. So maybe we'll get out fishing again. And let's jump right into...
We need to start a fishing 101 podcast. That's what we need to do.
Yeah. We do. Some non-SEO news to start. Whoa, what a shock. Some vulnerabilities on some plugins at WordPress. But these are some pretty big ones. Why don't you jump into this?
Yeah, so I always like to include these because so many people forget to update their plugins. Not a lot of time to spend on this. If you really want to research more, you will find the links to these in the show notes. The first is an issue with an Elementor widget. It is a vulnerability in Jag Elementor Kit. I'm actually not personally familiar with this one, but it is an add-on plugin for Elementor that has an XSS vulnerability affecting more than 200,000 WordPress installations. It is rated at a medium threat level of 6.4 out of 10. I found that interesting. I've never seen this threat level rating before. I don't know if Monty has just started including it or where that comes from, but let's include it. 6.4 out of 10. So that one's bad, but not the end of the world. The next one's quite a bit worse. It's a WordPress translation plugin vulnerability affecting over 1 million sites. It is in the WPML plugin, which is a WordPress translation plugin. I'm actually, again, not familiar with this one either, which is great because it means our clients aren't using them. This one allows attackers to execute code remotely, affecting more than 1 million sites. And it is rated at a threat level of 9.9 out of 10. So it doesn't get much worse than that. So let me rephrase that. Back up and update your plugins. And as usual, you'd want to stay in front of this because if you get attacked, you could be in big trouble, especially if you don't have backups.
Yeah. And if you're in a good hosting situation, consider ours very good with our clients. You're going to have a lot of backups, which is good. We have 90 days of backups for our clients. We're that paranoid because the fact is something could have been hacked 2 weeks ago, and then the hack is activated 2 weeks later or 2 months ago. That's how they do it. They don't necessarily attack right away because they know you've got backups. They want to make sure that whatever back door is left there. They're sneaky buggers. Dang it. Anyway.
I've had that happen with some of my personal sites. Luckily, they're not money-making sites. They're just like random whatever. And one was kind of a nothing site. And by the time I even noticed the hack, because it just sits there out in the world and I never go to it, it had been long since past my last backup. And that wasn't even because they just didn't activate it. It was just because I didn't notice it was hacked. And then it was, months after my oldest backup. And so I just deleted the site and started over. I should have called Dennis and had him fix it, but it was a nothing site, so I didn't care. But if it's your money site, that's huge.
It is. Yeah, and Dennis, you're alluding to, is our in-house developer, and he is pretty brilliant at fixing these, and it's really interesting the places he finds these back doors. It's stunning. I want to say kudos, but I don't like these people, but they do such good work finding these exploits. It's incredible. Anyway.
They are talented. You got to give them credit. Hackers, as evil as they are damn talented. They really are.
Yeah. It's too bad they're not using their talents for good. I'm sure they could do very well for themselves.
Yeah.
All right. So we're jumping into SEO news now. This is a report that some Google August core update gains have been vanishing in the past 24 hours. Barry has seen several, this is Barry Schwartz at seroundtable.com, has several instances of people reporting big gains that have now lost them. They're dropping off. He lists many possible reasons for this, such as a ranking bug, a new stage of the update, unrelated Google update, or perhaps nobody knows how to read charts.
That's his words, not mine.
Yeah, that's so perfect and so true, probably. The reality is, though, this is just one reminder to hold tight during an update. All the stuff goes up and down. We've seen it countless times, literally countless times, and you cannot get too excited positively or negatively about an update until it has settled and the next one's come out. Or even just settled a long time. These days, I say, and the next one comes out because they come out so darn fast now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's disappointing when it happens, when it's negative, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay that way.
I was actually surprised that sorry, Barry. I don't know why. I don't know why I just called you Gary. I was actually kind of surprised he posted this in a way because it is so well known that not to worry about it till it's done. He also posted, I didn't have it in the notes here, but he posted a survey of people asked, has this update so far had a positive effect, a negative effect, or no effect at all? And I thought, well, it's still rolling out. Like, is it really hard to gauge? And you know that negative and positive, if everybody voted, is going to be 50-50 because if it goes up, something's got to go down. So you're really getting the people that have seen negative results voting because they're finding this stuff. People that see wins don't necessarily flock to find out, why am I winning? But when you're losing, you definitely want to know why you're losing. As of this point, he was reporting 50% say rankings have gotten worse, 25 have gotten better, and 25% are saying no change approximately. But, we'll see what that says, in a couple of weeks, because this update's still rolling out. We've got a couple of weeks left of it. So apparently.
And I think the answer to why he does it is it's content for a site.
Fair. That's fair.
He's got a lot to put out.
I guess we're talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, the next one. Google issues manual actions over Google discovery policy violations. This is pretty interesting. Why don't you run with this?
Yeah, so first of all, if you're not familiar with Google Discover, I mean, I don't personally use it. I don't know how many of our listeners do, but if you don't know what it is, Google Discover is essentially a personalized content feed that sends users, so you essentially, articles and other content around your search interests, around your interests and search history, that sort of thing. If you want your site's content to appear in Discover, there are some steps you can follow and things, but essentially you need high quality content, timely content, and include high quality images that are at least 1200 pixels wide or more. So those are some very brief, high level things. Maybe we'll cover it in another episode. I didn't prepare notes to talk much about Discover, but on an upper level, that's what it is. Anyways, at the end of August, Google started issuing a large number of manual penalties in large batches for policy violations with Google Discover. So if you are impacted by this, you will receive a notification from Google. So the issue here is related to misleading content. And so the notification you'll get would say, we do not allow content that misleads users into engaging with it by promising details that are not reflected in the content. The violating URLs will no longer be eligible to appear on Discover. Additional policy violations may result in penalizations such as lower ranking, section level suspensions, or domain level suspensions. So one thing to note that's important here is that if you are caught for violating these terms, this will not affect your regular organic search rankings. It's only going to affect Discover. So that's good, potentially, at least for now, because some of these, they're really similar to like clickbait type stuff and misleading content. And I feel like that probably shouldn't be in the search results anyways. But
well, and I saw someone had said their website had been tossed out like what do you say, a banana peel in the garbage, just nothing, because he had a problem with his Google Discover. The thing is, Google Discover is only for mobile devices. It does not show up in desktop, and I think it's pretty cool. I've used it a lot. I haven't been using it recently though. But people commented in this article that one particular person said he's always reporting these sites when they are misrepresenting what they're going to be providing when you get there. And good for him. I'm glad he's doing that. It is a waste of time. I can fault people for having lower quality content that still provides the answer, but not misrepresenting the content. They got to go. That's universally disliked. So glad that Google's getting on top of this. And think of other things that I'd rather them get on top of. But anyway, this is one to go with.
Like maybe fixing issues with local?
Just maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I'm thinking that's exactly what you were thinking of when you said that.
Yes. Yes, indeed. It is still a mess. It's always keeping us on our toes. Okay, so next up here, Google search may now be using the Open Graph title for title links. Now, what we're talking about here is within the search engine result pages, SERPs. When you get there, you see the results. There's a title that's used to describe your page, and that's what you click on to go to that page. Well, the title can be, well, often is the title you put within your page, the actual title tag. But Google doesn't have to choose that. They can, if they don't like it, they can create their own, or they can source it from other places. And they have confirmed now that the Open Graph tag could be used. Now, the Open Graph tag is not added to every page. It's not added to every website. It is usually manually added, depending on what services you're using. And its purpose is to provide social platforms with a version of title, description, and potentially an image that can be used like a thumbnail for their platforms. And the reason they do that is every platform has a different sizing, title length. They're very unique. So Open Graph tags are very handy for doing that. I don't know many clients who spend the time to do unique Open Graph tags for every single page. So they usually just have the Open Graph tag mirroring what's in the title. Not all the time, but often. I know you've got some notes here you've added, so I'll let you take away with the rest here.
Yeah, so you just sort of touched on what the tag is. So
but you've got some other points here that are good.
Yeah. So Google, it's kind of funny. This list is almost silly, and I'll tell you why in a second. So currently, there are 9 sort of official places where Google can pull information for this title tag from, from this link text from. And these come from Google themselves. One is content in your title tag or title element, which Ross just talked about. That's the most common. We see that all the time. It could be from a main visual title shown on the page, including heading elements, for example, an H1, but it could just be text that's formatted with CSS or whatever to look like a heading or a title. Sometimes they'll pull from that. Other large or prominent content found on the site. They could take it from other text contained in the page, anchor text on the page, so anchor text you've used to link to other pages, anchor texts that point to that page. So if you have a link pointing to your homepage, they can take the text from that anchor from another page and use that as a link on your homepage. Structured data, and now, of course, the Open Graph content. So basically anything is what this comes down to. If there's text on your website anywhere, Google essentially can use it. But I will say, I do like how DMOZ isn't in the picture anymore, because they used to pull tags. You remember, this is funny, because when we started, we had the title tag, and that was it. And then it was Google would sometimes pull it from a DMOZ, Open Directory listing. And so that was frustrating as heck, because now you've got 2 places Google might pull a title tag from, and you couldn't always choose or make it do one or the other. And now it's just, Google does whatever it wants. And if they're not displaying what you want it to, sometimes tweaking your title can be enough. Other times you just can't get it to change, because Google just does whatever the heck they want to do.
It's true. Yeah. And we just have to go with the flow. And knowing where they take it from is a good thing. So if you find you've got a title you don't like, you got to do a little homework to figure out where it's coming from, so you can edit it, fix it up, or try to improve the titles you have if they're currently inventing their own.
Oh, well, I will expand on this a little bit, just so people are aware. If, let's say, Google's pulling that title from something other than your main title tag in your source code, this does not mean that the title tag on your page is not having an SEO effect. Google is still weighing the text in that title the same way they would, regardless of what they're displaying in the SERP. So if it's displaying something weird in the SERP and you're like, oh my goodness, my SEO is all screwed up, that's not necessarily the case. So don't panic if they're using something you don't like. You're still being weighed the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really important. Title tags are critical. Okay, well, let's take a quick break. And we come back, we're going to talk about something really interesting, another way to leverage your YouTube content.
SEO 101 will be back right after recess.
Welcome back to SEO 101 on WMR.fm, hosted by myself, Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my company, Senior SEO, Scott Van Ack. So I thought this is a cool find that you had there. Google discussed, someone had a question. Let's just start with that. It's about cannibalization of web content. He said, if I create a YouTube video and then take that exact text or content and place it on a web page, could Google flag that web page or site for duplicate content, unquote? And in a way that would cannibalize what kind of content you would have ranking in YouTube. That's another term we use, but anyways, let's focus on the main thing, duplicate content here. Martin, I haven't talked to him about him in ages, over at Google, answered, no. One is a video and the other one is text content, and that would be unique content, exclamation mark. I want to make sure that's added because that's really cool. He even went as far to say that this may be a good idea. Quote, it's also not a bad idea. Some users, like me, might prefer a text version and others might not be able to use a video version of the content in the first place due to bandwidth or visual constraints, unquote. So this is a great way to use that transcript. Copy it, then get AI to clean it up and post it to your site. This is something that if you've received our show notes newsletter, we kind of do this. We take the show notes we're working from now and we embed it into a newsletter. We also have a show notes post where we do the same thing on our site. There are countless ways we are planning to use all this content we're creating to get even more value out of it. It's really just a time issue. But as soon as we have a little more manpower, we could do that as well. We could take snippets of all of this and create them into short blog posts. All of this stuff is not duplicate content, even if you're posting this entire show to YouTube. It is completely different because it's a different media. Media counteracts any kind of duplication when it comes to content duplication in Google's eyes, which is really good to know and be reminded of. So, it's a really good takeaway. So maximize everything you're doing. It's hard work to create content. So especially YouTube. Once you've done it, make sure you leverage the heck out of it.
When I first saw this article, before I read it, my first reaction was, because I didn't know where this was going. And because I've definitely recommended to clients that they take the transcript from their video and put it on their site and utilize it in other ways. And before AI, I have love-hate with it. And this is like so awesome for AI. It really is. Because before we had a client who had, I think, 5 or 6 videos and there was no other content on certain pages and we needed that transcript. And so we would go to Google, go to YouTube, because all the transcripts are there, copy and paste it. And then, of course, it'd be riddled with spelling errors, grammar errors, the formatting was bad. And you'd have timestamps, like every 7 words, there'd be timestamps. And you had to edit this and clean it up. And I did, I think, 5 videos worth. And they were like 5-minute long videos of our client just talking. So they were very long. And I had to clean it up manually. And that sucked. And I couldn't think of any other way to do it. It was a nightmare. So then I had to do one more recently, and I just dumped the whole transcript into AI. I think it was just regular ChatGPT, but I might have used something different. And I said, please, and I say please with all my AI prompts. Am I like the only weirdo?
No.
Like, please, no. I'm like,
be nice to your overlords.
I know that you got to be prepared, right? Or as I think I said in chat earlier, they might blow your house up because they can do that. So I said, please remove all timestamps, fix all spelling and punctuation errors, and format this correctly. And it did it perfectly, like literally flawlessly. It found places where the transcript had like a weird name and it fixed the name to the correct name. Like it just knows. I don't know. It was like magic. It was, I wish that existed years ago. So
no doubt.
It is awesome. It is absolutely awesome how well it works for stuff like that.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. What's next here?
I don't know.
Google may no index and no follow. Do not signal site quality. What's all this? Go. I mean,
okay. So here we got Martin Splitt again. This is like the Martin Splitt show, and he's not even here. So in an SEO office hours video with Martin, he was asked, can using a lot of no follow or no index tags signal to Google that the site has many low quality pages? In short, Martin says no. He says, no, it does not signal low quality content to us. I'm assuming he means us as in Google, obviously. Related to nofollow, one example he gave is using nofollow on user-generated content. You could also use the rel equals UGC, but you don't have to. Another good example is that if you're linking to something that could change in a few years, so user-generated content is a good example of that, but if you're linking to something that is sort of dynamic and may change, and it's good to use nofollow sometimes because you don't necessarily want to vet what might come in the future. In regards to the noindex tag, he said there are lots of reasons why you may want pages to be indexed and not indexed. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And there are a lot of reasons. Now, one thing I want to point out that let's say you have thousands of pages that you're marked as no index. Make sure there's a reason you want them not to be indexed, because why? Why would you have thousands of pages you don't want Google to know about? And there are lots of valid reasons for that, but you might be no indexing content that really should be indexed. It might be helpful. So it's a whole it depends situation.
Yeah.
So there's no way to say without seeing the content, but really make sure you want that content not indexed. And one thing I saw that kind of resonated a little bit, I guess, is a comment on the Search Engine Roundtable post from Sanjeev. He had commented, "We always check this on our SEO audit checklists. Too many no index, no follow pages on the website is a signal to Google that websites have many low quality pages. We will still keep it on our checklist after this update as well. There is a difference between what Google does and what it says about quality policies." And I don't entirely disagree with him, although in this example, I kind of do, but I get what he's saying, that if Google says one thing, I mean, who's to say that an update hasn't already taken place and now it matters today? Like, I don't think that's the case here, but stuff like that happens all the time where John or Martin or Matt Cutts would say something, and then in a short amount of time, suddenly that's the opposite. Or I don't think they're trying to be tricky. I don't think they're trying to direct people in a wrong path, but things change all the time. So, again, it comes down to make sure that if you're using nofollow or no index, that you need to be using it. And I wouldn't worry about it other than that. So,
yeah, I agree. And I still would keep it on our audit checklist as well, but it's not in the same concept. Like, it's more of one of those pieces of a puzzle when we're looking at a website and doing an audit. We want to know everything about the website that Google could construe as negative or positive, and anything that gives us more insight into how it's running and how it's being managed. And so from those perspectives alone, yeah, it should be on your audit checklist. How many no index and no follow pages are on there? And, there's no harm. And it's good to know that at least publicly, they say it's not a low quality content signal. Again, it's take it with a grain of salt. If it's a massive amount of your site, then that's an issue. All right, some local SEO news now. I thought this was worth sharing. It's about your Google business profile. If you go there and look at your own profile and you see that there is a description that you didn't create showing on the public version of it. So let's say you type in your business name and you see what Google is showing people, and it's a description there that I didn't write that. It could even be wrong. And in this case, it was wrong from this thread on local search forum. So what I looked into it a little bit just to make sure nothing had changed, and there was a slight change. How are these descriptions created? Well, first of all, yes, you could have created your own, and that's often what's used. But there are three other ones that could be done if you didn't create them. The first one is that description could be based on a customer review. It's a snippet from a review that's on your profile. The second is a little scarier. They're testing AI summaries right now. They do apparently have an exclamation sort of warning saying that this is being tested. It's not showing up everywhere. I have not seen it yet. I've just heard about it. So we are going to see what comes of that. And the third one, which happens to be the culprit here, are editorial summaries. Oddly, actual Google writer created this description for this particular person's profile, and it wasn't correct. So it does not mean it's going to be accurate, even though they're doing the work manually, which is mind-boggling anyway. The good news is that with a couple of interactions with Google support, he managed to have it fixed. So I can't say that's going to happen every time, especially if this becomes a constant issue. Google support is notoriously poor when you really need them. But it's good to know he had a good experience there. Anyway, this link is in our show notes. So if you're currently signed up for them, if not, you can do so at SEO101radio.com. We have a link to our newsletter there, so you can sign up. Interesting. I think that what Google is doing in the Google Business Profile, they're constantly testing things. Like, for example, this particular description showed up above the address. I didn't note that earlier simply because I don't think that's going to be the case every time. They're always changing things. So just look for any description that you don't recognize. And this may be being caused by those three options. All right, let's talk about a client story you posted here, Scott.
Yeah, so it's just like a bit of a unique situation that we've seen in a few, maybe it's not super unique, but to us, it's only a couple clients stuff like this has happened to. So we have one client in particular who has sort of a specialty product. And over the past few months, we have seen traffic decline despite his rankings doing exceptionally well. Like his rankings for their main terms are better than ever, almost all number one and a lot of number two positions for everything that are good. Everything that's important that he wants is doing phenomenal. But yet he's seeing traffic drop. And it just doesn't quite make sense. So client was a bit concerned. I'm a bit concerned. Like, what's going on here? Why are we seeing this traffic drop? So we started doing some digging. And the first place I checked was search volume. If we look at the search volume for a lot of their core targets, we're actually seeing fewer people are searching for them. And in this case, I'm not talking about a seasonal issue where things naturally fluctuate, although in this case, it is a seasonal client. But we're looking at year over year data even, and search volume is down. And in this case, the reason for it is most likely related to COVID, because when COVID hit, their product got a huge boost, and the pandemic resulted in a surge of people searching for what these guys are selling. And now that's cooled down. It's just not, they're in the RV world. So, people are not looking for them RVs like they were at the start of COVID. At the start of COVID, you couldn't even buy an RV. Like, it was impossible. They were so popular. So that was like a big hit right there. Not really a lot you can do about that unless you want to pivot your business model. Like, if people are not searching for something as much, they're just not searching for it. How can you make people search? So that's a bit tricky. And then we found a couple more things. So that's sort of our main finding when we started digging, is just less popularity. And then we did a bit more digging. We found a couple more things so far. I'm actually still working on this, but found a couple more things. And one, they had a blog post that was removed. And I don't know much. I haven't even talked to the client about this yet. I just found this today, so I don't know a lot. But this particular blog post, for instance, in August of last year, had about 6,000 people find it organically as the landing page of the site, which that's a significant amount of people. And so for whatever reason, now this post is gone. I don't know why it's gone or where it went. That's something I'm going to be digging into. But that specifically is a really good reminder that if you plan on removing content from your site, make sure it's not high performing content. Make sure you don't have a lot of links to it. Make sure it doesn't get a lot of traffic. Again, I don't know the specific situation here yet as to why this was removed. Maybe it had to be removed. I don't know. But really be careful if you're going to remove content. And then the other example that I found where they did lose a lot of traffic was simply products that have been removed. And this makes sense because, and you can't really do anything about it, because if you don't sell a product anymore, or that product doesn't exist anymore, you have to remove it. Like, really, I mean, you can keep it for historical purposes, and there's obviously some debate over that. Like, do you keep sold out products on your site? Well, if it's never coming back, it seems kind of ridiculous to maintain that fake inventory. But they lost some traffic related to that. So realistically, my point here is that on a high level view, looking from the sky down at their stats, traffic is down, something really bad is happening, but really it's all natural and can be explained, and it's bad from a numbers perspective, I suppose, but it's not because anything bad happened. So I just want to explain really quickly how I sort of sorted this data to sort of find stuff. Hopefully this translates well to radio without screenshots, but we're going to try anyway. So this is what I did. So I went into SEMrush and I looked at all their rankings that they have to their site for August 2024. And I exported all of that into Excel. And then in another sheet, I exported everything from August 2023. And the really cool thing about SEMrush is that when you export all your rankings in bulk like that, it includes the search volume from that time period. So the search volume you see for August 2023 is what the volume was then, not now. So you can easily compare the two. So all that was dumped into Excel. I then created, I think I had 7 columns. So the keyword was one column, obviously, and then really narrowed it down. We had the old ranking and the new ranking, the old volume and the new volume, and then a comparison, 2 columns that compare the ranking versus the volume. And then you can compare, like, okay, this keyword is being searched half as much, and the ranking has done this or that. Has the ranking gone up? In a lot of cases, their rankings have gone up and the search volume has come down. So while rankings have improved, their volume went down because less people are searching. So the whole point, I know this is a lot of me rambling, do some digging before you panic, because, it would have been really easy to look at the situation and be like, okay, rankings are tanking. What do we have to do? And just like freaking out. But when you start to look at the data, it calms you down a lot, because it's not always as bad. And we're going to work on what we should do here. And I'm going to probably have a meeting with the client next week and discuss some plans for, he even said they might need to start thinking out of the box or pivot a little bit in how they're marketing to try to attract people that maybe wouldn't normally go for their products. Who knows where it's going to go at this point, but I'll, if it's worthy of SEO 101, we'll post an update or talk about an update in the future. But
so you mentioned you use SEMrush. Were you concerned at all about being on real data?
With the other tracking that we do, the data seems pretty accurate. The one concern I had is that for his August 2023 data, there were a lot of keywords, like long tail keywords that he ranked for briefly, number 1 in August of that year, like garbage keywords that are all really low search volume, like 10 searches a month kind of thing. And so if all that was real, I mean, we always have to look at everything with a grain of salt. Is this data that we're looking at legit or not? And how accurate is it? Well, always assume it's off a little bit, because I don't think it's ever perfect. But when I see stuff like that, I think he ended up having like 1,000 keywords they ranked for last year that are really useless keywords. Like, why was it even ranking? Why was the site ranking for some of that stuff? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But if that was delivering traffic and then they were removed, which they should have been removed because they made no sense, that would show a reduction in traffic to the site. But it's bad traffic. It's traffic you don't want anyways, because it doesn't convert. It doesn't make sense. So
interesting. Well, thanks for that share. That's great. All right, so we have questions, and a question actually that came through from Catherine. She says the SEO podcast suggested blogs should include fewer than 4 links or so per article. Yet, if an article is fully researched, there can be many more links. How does a writer substantiate her work when using so few links? Unquote. So this is great question, and it comes down to something that we should probably reiterate more often. And that is, whatever we're suggesting to you is kind of the baseline best practice. And it's like anything in SEO, there's always the maybe. It depends. And in this particular situation, it does depend. If you've got an article that requires more links because it's so thorough, go for it. We're not saying don't. We're just trying to give you a general rule to go by. And general is hard in SEO. We, in fact, had an issue recently where we were doing some link building for a client. And as it turned out, we weren't too proud of the links we created. So that wasn't great. But and we did fix that. However, one of the issues that came up was, we say on the show that we don't use any bad links. We don't do anything that's even gray, in the gray area. Well, we do. We have to. There's some situations where we're dealing with competitive marketplaces where everyone else is doing it, and the only way for our client to succeed is to do it a bit themselves. We're careful, but we still have to play that game. And also, it's easy to be a bit too sensitive about it as well. And I get that. Hey, we're dealing with people's livelihoods here. For example, in link building, Google is finally at the stage now where it doesn't penalize you if you've got a few links that aren't great. If the majority of the links that come through are great or good and have some weight, it's worth the time and money. If you have a few that don't, they're just discounted. It's not going to cause an issue. And when it comes to this kind of content, the same thing applies in many respects. When you're creating great content, you're creating great content. There's no reason to worry about putting a few more links in. If you want to create a list and its majority of the content is links, but you know it's helpful for your readers, you may just have to take a hit on that and know that page may not rank well because you've got a lot of links on it. Who cares? If you're offering value, that's what's going to keep people coming back to the site. So always keep in mind, this is for the readers. This is for your audience. It was a great question, Catherine. So thank you for sending it in. It just, you just got to keep everything in that it depends mindset. That's just, unfortunately, the world we live in from an SEO perspective. So to recap, one thing though is, we're not a black hat SEO group here. We don't suggest black hat tactics at all. And we suggest that if you are going to go into the gray hat area, do it very carefully and use experts who know what they're doing. It has to happen sometimes, unfortunately. If you're playing in that sandbox, you have to play in it very professionally and carefully. Anyway, repeated that enough. Anything that you wanted to add, Scott?
I think you covered any points I would have had. So
perfect. Well, on behalf of myself, Ross Dunn, CEO of Stepforth Web Marketing, and my company's senior SEO, Scott Van Ack, thank you for joining us today. Remember, we have a show notes newsletter you can sign up for at SEO101radio.com, where you don't have to miss a single link, and you can refresh your memory of a past show at any time. Have a great week, and remember to tune into future episodes, which air every week on WMR.fm.
Thank you for listening, everybody.